land, land, and land again. Looking back at 2025, this was really the year when land governance actually came into focus for us.
Yeah, indeed, Aurélie. It's, uh, it's about four major events that we had from Ethiopia to Germany, with people coming from more than 30 countries in Europe, Africa, Asia, in the USA. And it's a deep dive that we strategies, into that topic of land governance.
Absolutely. I think we touched over 500 people in land conversations in 2025. And since we at Strategies focus on state functionality, the functionality of African states, what we learned is that land is essential to functionality, and land is an indicator of functionality. Actually, functional states govern their land, and the state in which the governance of land is gives you an idea of how functional the state is. So, land is key.
Yeah, and throughout these events, we had one of the key shocking learning regarding land governance. There is a big challenge with less than 15% of African population living on a land which is titled or registered. It means that land tenure is a key challenge in Africa.
Absolutely. Less than 15% of our land has titles, is actually registered, is actually secure. But I have something a little bit more shocking, Baba.
Yeah.
Out of that 15%, only 20% of those land titles are in the hands of women. Women who are the producers of food on our continent. 60 to 80% of agricultural production is being done by women. So, if you don't secure land for women, you are blocking investment into that land, you are blocking innovation on that land, and you are endangering the food security for our continent. So, I think we have a few challenges there.
We are definitely having shocks because we are talking of women. I am shocked by the number of youths not having access to land. 450 million of Africans are between 15 and 34 years, which means this is a huge potential for workforce for Africa, but unfortunately, they don't have access to land. If you want to produce, you need land. It's the major asset. But these youths are shut out by corruption within our procedures. They don't have access to the different conversations. They are not included in different processes. And most important also, we have high land costs. This represents even a danger for African countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, key challenges with regard to tenure and registration, with regard to access of different groups, but we have to be careful. Let's not go any further into the land discussion without talking about soil. Land governance, land security is important, but the quality of that land, what you're going to do with it, how you're going to actually manage the soil so that it meets the needs of the people is also key. So we must secure land, but we must manage soil sustainably. And this is a key part of the challenge. We like to brag and say that Africa has 65% of the world's arable land. We say we are going to feed the world in the future. But what few people know is that 45%, almost half of that arable land is degraded. So land security goes hand in hand with soil management.
Yeah, coming out of that conversation, it was then clear for us that land governance and soil management are really urgent. Not only urgent, but important and foundational for development in Africa. Like throughout Africa, we saw that land degradation is even increasing, and soil access to land for the people remains unequal. This means that if Africa, we want to progress within the development, we want to be more developed than what we were in the past, we need to ensure land governance and soil management as soon as possible.
Urgent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very urgent. But what also came to me during these events is that we actually have the tendency to talk about land as a separate, as a silo sector. But this is just one amongst the other. We are talking land aside, and on the other side, we are talking about soil management, whereas these two topics are actually cross-cutting to the development of a continent, of a country. Yes, if we want to give access to land, if we want to ensure soil quality, we need to take into account that these two topics or issues affect our agriculture. We talk about land in the mining sector. Where do we extract? Where are our communities living? We need to talk about these two topics when we are talking of urbanizations. We also need to talk about it when it comes to job creations and even entrepreneurship. So definitely we need to have land and soil in the same conversation.
So land and soil in the same conversation as other development sectors. But there's one, very big challenge in Africa today that we have to address, and often when we are addressing it, we don't bring up land, and that is security. If you go to any court in Africa and you look at the list of cases in court, you will find that the vast majority are about land. If you go to our conflict regions where people have decided to take up arms and are in open conflict, you will realize that soil management, land use, conflict between different users of the land are at the heart of the conflict. So land and soil determine food security. They determine how we adapt to climate change. They determine social cohesion. They determine economic growth, and therefore they determine peace. Land government and soil management, where they fail, the very existence of the state is at stake. So I think we became clear, right? It really hit home for us in 2025 that we at Strategies, who are working on the development of Africa, who are working on bringing solutions to our continent, we can no longer have these conversations without talking about land and soil.
Exactly, Carl. Let me add something to what you just described. It's obvious that land governance and soil management are really important on the continent nowadays. And it's also clear that the way a country manages its land reflects the way it plans, reflects the way it regulates, it arbitrates the conflicts and how it protects its citizens' rights, because it's about the citizens living and using the land. In that sense, land governance and soil management are not only about land. It's about credibility of the public institutions. It's about public trust. It's about creating security. It's about creating hope for the citizens. And if that is not done, it means we really are in a situation where citizens are not secured.
Absolutely.
We would like to have secured citizens. We would like to have citizens with trust in their institutions. And yeah, we have different challenges, but we have the tendency to also think that Africa is going from scratch, which is not actually the case, because there are strategies, there are solutions, and there are practices that are being developed and shared across the continent and even the globe.
Absolutely. In this area of land governance, in the area of soil management, Africa is not starting from scratch. That's the good news.
Yeah.
That's the good news. We talked a lot about the challenges, but there is good news. And one of the things we have is expertise. During 2025, I discovered I had never heard of them before. The NELGA network, which is a network of over 40 universities and research institutions across our continent, with researchers, analysts, students, professors who are all working on land governance. They are producing data, they are gathering evidence, they are developing information and knowledge to inform policy that will help us in terms of taking the right decisions with regard to land. So the expertise is there, and these are Africans.
Africa has expertise, there is knowledge, there's data, and I was thrilled in 2025 to discover WOCAT, which is a platform of over 800 sustainable land management approaches and technologies documented across the world, with many of them coming from African regions. And strategies has supported WOCAT to put in place the AfrioCAT, which is the regional cluster of WOCAT, which is going to bring together again the researchers, the private institutions, the public sector, the grassroots institutions, to document these best practices, strengthen capacities, and also influence policies across Africa up to the global level.
Yeah, thank you, Aurélie. Talking about the African expertise, like you with WOCAT, I had the opportunity to co-facilitate with UCA the conference on land governance in Berlin, and there we discovered the GIZ LandHub with a lot of initiatives on land governance, securing land using data, using local governments, using customary land tenure systems, using digitalization, and using gender-based approaches. This is the GIZ LandHub. And we discovered that these approaches are rolled out, implemented, tested on the ground, and these are documented in a database that is ready to be used by governments to ensure land governance and soil management. So the problem is not about existence of expertise, it's about the will, the political will of the decision makers.
Yeah, I think 2025 we really it was a real pleasure. It was exciting, it was fun. We learned so much about, yes, the challenge of land, yes, how cross-cutting it is for so many other sectors, but also that solutions exist expertise exists, developed by Africans, rolled out by Africans. So like you said, Baba, it's time to get to work.
Yeah.
Aurélie.
So what about 2026?
Yeah.
The priorities are clear. And you already mentioned it, Ka. We have to put at the center of the conversation state functionality. Because a state that governs land, that manages soil, is a state with institutions that exist, that are present, that are accessible to all the citizens from the central to the local levels. And these institutions should have the adequate capacities and resources to be able to title the lands, to be able to plan, be able to guarantee the rights of the community, and be able also to ensure equity. But the state cannot do that alone. The state, of course, should drive the process, but this process to ensure that we have key stakeholders, the private sector and the civil society at the table.
As we like to call them, the architects of functionality.
Yeah.
The state is in the driver's seat, but private sector, civil society, if we want to build functional states in Africa, we need these three architects. And we need them not just at the central level, not just at the national level. We need state functionality at a decentralized level. We need states to function at the central level, but if we are talking about managing soil, if we are talking about governing land, we need the local governments to be functional. They are the ones who can integrate the customary land management systems, integrate the tradition, integrate the history of that land. They are the ones who know the particular situation of the soil in that local area, and who can develop together with these architects that you mentioned at the local level soil management techniques, approaches, and strategies that will actually help us to restore and safeguard land, safeguard soil for the needs of those specific people in those specific areas. And to do this, there is a second D. So first D, decentralization. Second D is digitalization. Digitalization will enable states, whether it's at the central level, whether it's at the local level, to move quickly. Baba, you said urgent, yeah? We need to get this done. To move quickly, to go work on scale. As we all just said, prototype solutions are there. People have tested out things. Initiatives are there. Now, what we need is titling to move from 15% to 60, 70, 80%. What we need is for soil management practices to move from a pilot from one region in the country to all the regions in the country. So digitalization, decentralization in 2026, these are priorities.
Thank you, Ka. So next to these two priorities, digitalization, decentralization, let me add another one, which is integration. And I think we need to integrate the topic of land governance and soil management into the strategies that talk about agriculture, mining, energy transition, urban development, economic growth, climate change, and so on. Because development is a holistic topic, and soil management is foundational to that development. So from now on, in every conversation, the recommendation that we can give to all the stakeholders of the development sector is, from the local level to the global one, please always ask this question: where is land? Where is soil management? Because it's pivotal as we move on now in Africa.
So the last priority for 2026 as we roll out, I feel like I should not have to say this in 2026,
Yeah.
but the reality, Baba, you talked about political will, and we are still striving to have policies in Africa, governance in Africa, which sees the citizens as the center and therefore makes sure that all of these citizens are included. So the last priority is inclusion. Women, men, youth, people living with disabilities, ethnic minorities, displaced people, everybody has to be integrated into the vision for land governance and soil management. Everybody has to be a part of the implementation process. Everybody has to be a part of evaluating whether that land governance and soil management is working for them with their specific needs. And everybody has to be a part of rethinking, re-strategizing, and continuous learning. So we learned a lot in 2025. We have the priorities for 2026. Land, land, land again.
So be prepared. If you see us coming to the table, be ready to answer the question, where is land, where is the soil? So
With the citizen-centered approach, 2026, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.